Hi, I'm Scott Sneath with BluChip, and today I'm with Brian Mitchell, founder, managing partner, and CEO of GM Ryan. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about GM Ryan. What sort of firm is this?
Sure. So GM Ryan is a professional services firm. We are a retained executive search firm. I started the company 19 and a half years ago, so almost 2 decades. We work with institutional investors, both private equity and venture capital, and their portfolio interests within technology verticals, but internet, AI, a lot of software sectors. We placed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of senior executives across the country over the last couple of decades.
So you were in technology sales yourself for a number of years. What inspired you to start this firm?
That's a good question. So for the first 12 years of my career, I was in increasing responsibilities of leadership within the telecommunications technology space. I was traveling like crazy. I had young kids. I was making good money, but just wasn't that enamored with a lot of the political environment that I was navigating, reporting to the CEO of a publicly traded company, and I just wasn't having that much fun. So I guess I had my midlife crisis early, examined a few different things to get into, and for a variety of reasons, ended up taking the entrepreneurial plunge to open up an executive search firm that nobody had ever heard of before.
Tell me what's behind the name GM Ryan?
So GM Ryan is really after family. My wife's name was Jean Marie, and all 3 of my daughters' middle names are Ryan.
Awesome. I was curious about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, our student athletes, they're familiar with the concept of getting recruited, right? Because most all of them at some point in their high school careers were getting recruited to play a sport. But talk about the role of an executive recruiter and sort of help them understand what that means and, in terms that they'll get and relating it back to perhaps sports.
Sure. Well, I would say it's very different. An executive recruiter really does not represent a candidate. So they recruit candidates.
Right.
They certainly will do. Anybody who has any longevity as an executive recruiter operates ethically and in the best interest of all parties involved. But the recruits do not pay the executive recruiters, the companies do. And that's a very important just understanding to note. The companies are looking to fill certain functions. Maybe it's somebody to run sales. Maybe it's somebody to run marketing, product, technology, finance, the entire company. Maybe it's a board member seat. And there are certain functions, roles that company is looking to have that executive come in and execute. They're gonna solve something. They're gonna resolve something, take advantage of an opportunity, grow, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The role of the executive recruiter is to represent the interests of that company and go out and search and find the most exceptional candidates and compel them to have an exploratory conversation initially with the executive recruiter and then subsequently with the hiring executive at XYZ company, whoever it might be. And that's ultimately kind of guide through the process of a series of conversations, interviews, formal, informal, there's testing and different things that kind of goes by, and that it could take a couple months, it could take a year. It takes a long time depending on the role in the company and the level of urgency. As it relates to sports, it's still a team environment. Companies are teams. So, looking to bring in somebody that's a superstar in whatever their capacity is as an accountant, as a rainmaker, in sales or business development or something like that. There are certainly people that have very proven track records. People that are first coming out of college do not. And so it's a much different experience when you're coming in to try and get in the door somewhere because you're less proven, even if you've been an exceptional athlete or an exceptional student. And those are winning attributes for a lot of companies that they'll weigh in on that and they'll give benefit of the doubt. But once you're out in the working world and you've had several years of experience, maybe even decades, then the measurability of somebody's impact is going to come from from that performance versus say what they did athletically or collegiately.
For sure, for sure. No, and it sounds in some ways, for a college team, if they're looking every year, they're looking to fill new roles, right? Whether it's a football team, a quarterback, or if it's a field hockey team, it might be a goalie, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, your role is to work with those companies and find the best candidates to fit the company, the culture, what sort of performance they're looking for. So, that makes a ton of sense. So for student athletes, for those that have really embraced the experience, really gotten very good at managing their time, given their commitments academically and athletically, are very self-motivated, disciplined, those sort of attributes. From your experience and sort of the landscape of opportunities out there, are there any particular roles that they tend to do better in or thrive in? Is it sales? Is it marketing? Is it cybersecurity? I don't know. Do you see any patterns from that standpoint?
Honestly, no. I don't necessarily see a common denominator. I mean, let's face it, everyone's different. So some people are good at math, some people are good at more conceptual studies like history or philosophy or something like that. So if somebody's analytical versus say conceptual, they're probably going to be better suited for different functions professionally. Someone who's conceptual is probably not going to be an accountant or an economist. So maybe that's suited for somebody that's more analytical. What I would say though is the competitive nature, the discipline nature. That does maybe tend to lend itself to certain cultural environments. Functionally, I mean, you could certainly say sales. Sales is highly competitive,
right?
And then there's internal competitors, even because everybody
Right.
they see some sort of stacked rankings of
Right.
people within a company, and it could be a small company of 50 people, it could be a company of 250,000 people, but there's a barometer of success that's measurable when you're in a commercial role like sales or even marketing or business development, partnerships, alliances, those kind of functional areas. So that go to market, I could see transferring with athletics. It's interesting as we've gone to hire for people here internally. I like people that they were an athlete, or maybe they worked their way through college part-time. I don't care if they're bussing tables. If that shows a certain discipline of hard work ethic, just like it's hard work to, maintain a decent GPA and also, be a full-time athlete. I think that is admired, and it's an indicator of something that's a positive attribute. It's not a track record, but it's an indicator. So yes, I think that hiring executives look for that.
Great, thank you. So for our current student athletes, right? These kids are still in school. What are the things they can do, whether it's on campus, to prepare themselves and position themselves for that first job? And I know this isn't the focus of your firm. You're dealing with seasoned veterans, placing them in executive positions, but everyone's got to start somewhere, right? So what are the things that advice you would give to them to help position themselves for that first opportunity?
Yeah. Well, what type of job does somebody have during the summer? Is it an internship at a true company in a functional area that's going to be additive to whatever their vocational desire is, or are they living at the beach during the summer and selling T-shirts on the boardwalk, which there's nothing wrong with. Go out, be young.
If they're good at it.
So that's not even like a knock. It's marketability, though, depending on what somebody wants to do when they first come out of school. If they've been at the beach every summer selling T-shirts versus the person who's had 3 years of internships at major companies in some sort of functional area that is relevant to whatever their major field of study is. And it could just be some business degree or whatever. It doesn't even really matter. But is there something that shows that, one, they're putting forth that initiative, during the summer, or maybe even, during the year, whether it's paid or unpaid internship, where are they getting experience in their, even if it's not even their major field of study, although it typically is, but in the field that they want to pursue. if there's something marketable as it relates to that, I think that that's going to be viewed more positively than, again, somebody who's selling t-shirts. Although selling t-shirts, I'm sure it's fun. And maybe if they want to get into sales, maybe that's a good thing.
Right.
So no knocking what people do.
Yeah.
Frankly, there's all kinds of different roads to success. But if I'm thinking about how to get ahead when I first graduate with an undergraduate degree, and look, it's also different if someone's coming out of Harvard or Stanford, they are getting recruited because some companies are hedging towards assumed intellectual aptitude, for lack of a better way to put it. And let's face it, it's hard to get into those schools academically, and typically most of the people there are pretty smart. So certain companies might recruit only from those kind of organizations, just like maybe in high school, if somebody isn't at a IMG Academy, some big private school that is very I guess revered and proliferates a lot of people that go on to not even just D1, but just to play in college, wherever, in whatever sport. That there's, I guess, a certain pattern that there's predictive kind of, I guess, repeatability, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, that people come out of these sort of environments, these sort of schools, that they're going to be. I lost my train of thought here.
It's all right. I think we got it. We're good.
All right.
So a question about the process itself, and I don't think this just applies to anybody who's getting their first job, but somebody who's pursuing a job 10 years in. One of the things that I see is there's a bit of an expectation that if I send an email, somebody's going to get back to me when I'm looking for a job. And talk about the importance of follow-up and persistence, and what is that line between I don't want to bug them or their persistence, right? And that may be a good attribute, because I often say how you look for a job is a demonstration of how you're going to do the job as well.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I completely agree with you. And look, for somebody who doesn't have a job, their job is to go find their next job. And hopefully it's not just a job, right? Hopefully it is a career step. It's a vehicle to get them towards whatever they want to achieve professionally, and that interweaves with what they want to achieve personally. So completely agree with you. And I think that it's a big error for people to assume that they send in their resume to somebody and that someone needs to get back to them. They don't. Nobody owes anybody anything. So polite persistence is. I wouldn't say that it's suggested. I would say that it's absolutely required. The other thing is that, let's say somebody's on LinkedIn or they're on Indeed.com or some job board, and they see that they're looking for XYZ, it doesn't even matter what the function might be. And they're like, oh, wow, this is perfect for me. They send in their resume through some link, in that process. They don't know who it goes to. I can tell you who it goes to. It probably goes to a junior recruiter, somebody who's probably only a couple years older than they are.
Yeah.
And they're getting hundreds of these different applications every single day. And they can't possibly respond to all of them. And so understanding that that's the environment, if somebody looked at that company and they said, okay, I want to be an engineer at this company, that was my major field of study, or I want to be a salesperson, who runs engineering for that company? Who runs engineering in that region where somebody might be physically located, or sales, or whatever the function might be? It's not very hard to do a little bit of research and identify who these people are on LinkedIn. It's a phenomenal tool. And then to reach out to those people directly. That shows initiative as well. It makes you stand out. All of a sudden, you're not in this fray of hundreds of applicants. You're contacting a decision maker. And you're going to hopefully get their attention with a concise email. If you got to scroll down, it's too long. Something concise, certainly with all your contact information and with a resume, but something concise, to the point. Obviously, positive energy and articulate a few sentences, but get to that presumed decision maker and try and stand out. That alone makes you stand out. The effort, the initiative to do that. Most people don't do that, and they expect someone's going to call them back, and they shouldn't. And there should be follow-up from that. You send an email to somebody, you call and you leave a voicemail. Do people even check their voicemails? You don't even know if somebody received that. Is there somebody else that you know that might be able to make an introduction to that person? Maybe there's some common connections that somebody has on LinkedIn or some other area of connectivity. So there's 100% would-be candidates, people that want to be considered to be candidates, should be assertive in their pursuit to get the attention of the actual decision maker.
Yeah, I think I always say, everything is a tiebreaker, right? And if you can move your resume up the stack a bit, and at the end of the day, this is a process of elimination, until it's a selection process, right? If you got 100 resumes and you got 2 jobs, you might get down to 8 by the time you're really considering those. So I think that's super important. The last question in that area is the increasing role of using AI for resume reviews. I've talked to a number of talent acquisition people at companies, and they say, human doesn't even see it the first round. This thing gets scanned, put in, gets reviewed. We look to match up keywords on resumes with job description. Is that where it needs to be? Is it a shortcut or just a necessary evil because you got so many people applying for a similar position?
Yeah, so look, AI is here to stay, and as it relates to recruiting, it is a filter. They're looking for certain keywords, and if those keywords aren't on there, then they're probably not gonna. They're just gonna automatically disqualify those individuals. I think when people are coming out though for entry-level positions, there's only so much marketability that they have. Even if they've had a couple of summer internships, that's relevant. They work for anyway some company in some function that is maybe more marketable than the t-shirt experience. You could certainly populate keywords into a CV, into a resume, and I think that makes sense. But if the word is engineering, or it's sales, or it's pharmaceuticals, or whatever it might be, product leader, whatever it might be, that's probably going to come out anyway. You'd be shocked though of how many people will apply to roles that they have absolutely no relevance for whatsoever. We don't really even use job boards at all at this point. We don't post anything because it's just you get way too much riffraff, respectfully, that comes in, and it's just not a good use of time for that recruiter. So I don't know that there's anything that anyone can do to plan for or around AI. I think you want to ensure your keywords are in your CV, in your resume for sure. And I wouldn't look at it as a concern or even an advantage or a disadvantage, because it's just here to stay, and it's like another form of software. Right.
That makes sense. So just, last question, any, closing thoughts for the BluChip? Any closing thoughts for the BluChip student athletes?
Well, I think that there is an advantage if somebody has been an athlete, even for a couple of years, let alone 4 or more. It seems like with the COVID era now. But say someone has been working, because that's really what it is. You're working full time while also going to school full time. I think that is an advantage. I think to lean on that though as something that's defining for somebody when they're going to go into, again, the pharmaceutical industry or the automotive industry or whatever industry it might be and whatever function it might be, then that's only a bit of an advantage to get in the door. And from there, it's going to come down to the marketability, or I should say the impact that somebody's going to be able to have in their role. And it's going to be based on merit. And once the merit has been consistently performed, it's sustained, those people are going to have hopefully long careers and very successful, and they'll continue to move up and take on more and more responsibilities. But I think illuminating the fact that it's been work and that it's taken discipline from a scheduling standpoint, just to carry the load of workload, both academically and athletically. I think to illuminate that is certainly prudent, but I wouldn't lean on it once you're actually in an interview and you're talking about what somebody's going to be able to do kind of moving forward once they're on board somewhere.
Sure. Now, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's something it's part of your history, it's part of your track record, but it needs to advance and move forward. right? You can't lean on it forever. If those attributes come through and they apply themselves to the position you're in, and that's a good thing. Well, Brian, thank you for taking the time today. We really appreciate it. On behalf of BluChip, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.